Well, we're back with Senator Ron Johnson, and we're going to dig into one of the most controversial issues in American history, what really brought down the Twin Towers, Building 7 on 9/11. Senator Johnson is calling for new hearings, asking the tough questions the government refuses to ask. Here at Redacted, we've said it before, you'd have to prove to us that the buildings weren't brought down in a controlled demolition. Here you're seeing Building 7 going down perfectly. By the way, the building was a trapezoid shape. Perfectly controlled demolition, in our opinion, and the opinion of 9/11 firefighters who I spoke to last week, who are fighting for justice for the firefighters that lost their lives, for the families that lost their lives. And Senator Johnson is really leading now, I think, the conversation around this. I spoke to Congressman Curt Weldon this weekend, and he feels like we've maybe turned a corner. You're actually seeing some positivity now and a light at the end of this tunnel for so many of these victims of 9/11, trying to get answers on these sort of taboo subjects that you'd be labeled a conspiracy theorist before. So Senator Johnson, this is a brave thing you're doing. I will say this is a very brave thing you're doing. Where do things stand now, and why now? Why now did you decide to maybe lead the charge on this investigation into 9/11?
Well, I'm still being labeled a conspiracy theorist. I have in the
Welcome
past.
Welcome to the club.
But everything I was looking into has all been proven true. Listen, I, like most Americans, just accepted the narrative of what happened 9/11. Didn't really think much of it. It obviously changed the world. I'm not a New Yorker. But how I got involved in this really was my then chairman of the Permanent Subcommittee Investigation, now I'm chairman, Richard Blumenthal, wanted to do an investigation of Saudi involvement with the Live Golf and PVI, or the PGA. And it was an investigation I really wasn't interested in, and it's private sector negotiation, let them do it. But the result of that had a pretty high-profile hearing. And so I was approached by 9/11 families with a packet of information from the FBI, heavily redacted. That's all they've been able to get out of the FBI 20-some years after 9/11 in terms of what the FBI knew about potential Saudi involvement. And they asked me to use my position, my responsibility, to try and get that information unredacted. So I asked Senator Blumenthal in the hearing, would you join me? He joined me and requested information from the FBI. Of course, we got squat. We got nothing. And then further, Curt Weldon appeared on Tucker Carlson. And, after many, many years having this all bottled up, is starting to, talk about more things. So that just starts you down the road of having your eyes opened, and you look at some of these documentaries like Seven, Bravo 7, I can't remember the full name of that, and you just realize there are a lot of legitimate questions that weren't allowed to be answered. I mean, you see the 9/11 commissioners said it was set up to fail. Again, you just end up with all these very legitimate, they're not crazy questions, it's like,
no.
Yeah, why did they, just get rid of all the debris from 9/11? Totally contrary to any type of, firefighting investigation. Again, I could rattle down a whole list of questions. So all I can say right now, I don't have answers. I'm not sure we ever will get answers. But I think these are legitimate questions, and I'm kind of open for business. I mean, you've got information. I just actually saw somebody walking out of the Hart building as I was walking in, kind of serendipity there. And this individual was volunteered to sift through some of the debris, looking and pulling out any kind of electronic piece of equipment and sorting it out. Why? I mean, for what happened to that? So again, I don't know. Could be perfectly innocent, could be less innocent. I don't know. I just don't know. All I know, again, I'll underscore that there are so many very legitimate questions. I think these people, firefighters, people who lost loved ones, 9/11 families, at a minimum, they ought to be able to have somebody ask those questions and try and get answers to them.
Yeah, and so many of it left out of the 9/11 Commission report. I mean, you just brought up, why did we ship off this steel to China 2 weeks after so that we couldn't examine the burn, the temperature burn on the steel, the thermite, the nanothermite particles in the dust, which wasn't even in the 9/11 Commission report. It required third parties to go and look at. And then you have, as you pointed out, the 9/11 Commission really was sort of set up to fail from the beginning. And I think when I spoke to these firefighters who've been really fighting for this, they said, what we're hoping Senator Johnson will do, what we're hoping Congress will do this time, is set up really an independent commission where there's not there's no special interests in there. You don't have these bureaucrats in there. You don't have like these industry insiders in there who have something to hide. Is that possible? Do you think that's even possible, Senator?
But it would be possible if we can assemble all these legitimate questions and just lay them out in the hearing. Again, no expectations. You really don't expect out of me that I'm going to come to all the conclusion. Here's your answers. What I can do is I can assemble the legitimate questions. Again, if some of them have already been answered, if some of those theories have been debunked, fine. Again, I'm just interested in the truth, and that's what whether it's the 9/11 families, whether it's the firefighters, whether it's the architects that are for 9/11 truth. I mean, all these people that look at this and just go, and people that are knowledgeable. I mean, people that have now. I mean, firefighters. There was never a steel structure building like that brought down by a fire. That's why they went up there. They were not expecting that to come down on their heads. There's one pretty famous guy, walked 40 floors up to the floor where the fires was, and really seconds before the towers came down. He said, "Okay, we got this under control. I need X number of units to do it." Again, they were not expecting this, and certainly wouldn't expect Building 7. I guess that's where my eyes were opened to these legitimate questions. I mean, didn't even ever hear about Building 7. All of a sudden you see the video that you're playing right now, and it's like, that sure looks like controlled demolition to me. And then you get that structural engineering professor up in Alaska, does a 4-year study with the graduate students, pretty well debunks the NIST study that they won't even release their calculations, or a lot of them. Again, so okay, why? Why did this suppress all of the reports? This Graham McQueen guy he just was really looking into this, so he just found all this file footage and identified something like 156 people that day. 2 reporters saying they heard explosions. That wasn't part of that. So again, why were all those legitimate questions suppressed? Why was that information really brought to the fore? Why did you really go in the news media from explosions being heard ahead of time to the way the building brought the Twin Towers down? No further questions need to be asked. I mean, the BBC reporter was, that literally said, "Oh, the Building 7 came down and it's just right over her shoulder."
And it hadn't come down yet.
Yeah.
And it hadn't. Yeah. I mean, so Senator Johnson, by the way, if our viewers right now, Senator Johnson is nailing on a number of the huge issues right now across the board, from the NIST study being debunked, the Alaska study, which totally did a complete 180 on what was found in the NIST report, to the firefighters who were there in the building and heard explosions, and where nothing from the plane, or no plane actually hit Building 7 whatsoever. The amount of fuel that would be required to bring down Building 7 would be like nanothermite 2,000 degrees at the very least to melt steel. And there was empty offices all through that building, Senator, as you know. So there was not any like papers, burning materials, couches that would even get up to that burning temperature. And these families, I think in many ways, have felt like they've been lied to, and they've been dragged around. They've been asking for information from their government, and they've just been told to, just shut up, just sit down, take this 9/11 Commission report as the gospel truth, and you don't ask any more questions about it.
Well, that's why you deserve commendation, because if you are willing to be called a conspiracy theory, then other people with legitimate questions, it doesn't hurt quite so much, right? Because you are just saying, here's a list of questions I cannot answer, and the American people deserve. And so I think that so many people in politics would not want to be smeared with that conspiracy label. And since you're willing to wear it, then the rest of us can ask questions. So I just wanted to give you that admonishment.
It's brave. Yeah, we'll say it's brave.
No, it's stubborn.
Okay.
so I've seen their playbook. What they do, and they've done it to me. So I've seen now. I understand what they do. They'll go out and they will discredit somebody, right? They'll figure out some way, whether it's true or false. They'll figure out something to marginalize that individual, to destroy them. And then all they have to do is, anytime that person spouts something, well, he's totally discredited. They've done that to me. So again, I know.
And then the whole movement gets discredited, right?
Right. So again, they're very good at doing this. I mean, it's the CIA that I think is during the Kennedy's assassination investigation, talked about how we just call these people conspiracy theorists. It works marvelously well. It just works great. I mean, they did it to all these doctors that had the courage and compassion to treat COVID with things like ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine. They just destroyed them so that no other doctors would speak out. Very few doctors would use the ivermectin. They just wouldn't do it because they didn't want to be destroyed like these others. So it doesn't take very many people, make an example of them, and kind of the rest of the herd just steps back and says, I want to be able to pay off my student loans. I want to be able to continue my job. I don't want my reputation destroyed. So it's a very effective technique.
So, Senator, we'll get you out of here on this. We know you're busy. When do you think you will move forward with this an investigation on 9/11, hearing on this? When can we maybe expect that, do you think?
Well, right now, as I always describe myself, I'm a mosquito in the nudist colony. It's a target-rich environment. So I've got, right now we're trying to do the one big beautiful bill. That's kind of what's taking up all my time. I spent all weekend literally preparing and putting the finishing touches on a report that just kind of lays out really what dire straits we're in and how none of this is really addressing it. So been working on that. The reason I ran for a third term was nobody was advocating for the vaccine injured. We've held one hearing on the corruption of the federal agencies hiding the myocarditis signal. That's just the tip of the iceberg. So again, right now I'm open for business. If you have information, we're willing to look at it. Okay, I've got a very open mind. I mean, these documentaries they put together, a couple that I mentioned, there's other ones, are really excellent. Again, I'm not vouching for all of them. I don't know what's true. Some of this stuff may be not on the up and up. I just can't really say. But I'm in right now the mode of gathering information, asking the questions, and if I hold a hearing, it's literally going to be the unanswered, legitimate questions surrounding 9/11.
Well, as I mentioned, Senator, last week I had a long discussion, a couple hours here with some really American heroes, firefighters. One who really led the charge on trying to bring shine a light on Building 7. They put together a whole report that they're hoping to get in front of President Trump. It's like a 3 or 4 page report on Building 7 and how the controlled demolition. So I will make sure I will do my part to get that report over to your office. And you can take and run with it if you will. So, Senator, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your bravery in this. Good luck on this big, beautiful bill, and hope that people are paying attention. Hopefully, your report will see the light of day and people will pay attention to how we can have a more effective, big, beautiful bill. Senator, great to see you.
Well, thanks for having me on, and definitely give me that information. I will read it. Trust me.
Perfect.
Amazing.
Thank you so much, Senator. Great to see you.
Yeah.